The screech of metal and shattering glass still rang in my ears as I sprinted through the automatic doors of Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. "Tiffany Hargrove, where is she?" I gasped at the nurse station, my voice cracking with panic. The nurse pointed down the hall and I ran, ignoring the stares from people in the waiting area. When I pushed open the door to room 412, Tiffany lay there, pale against the white sheets, her blonde hair matted from the accident, her blue eyes fluttering open but empty of any warmth I knew so well. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube they had just removed. Her mother, Mrs. Hargrove, stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly on the floor, her face tightening into that familiar mask of polite disdain. "Edith, this is not the time," she said firmly, crossing her arms over her crisp blouse. "She's just woken up from the coma. The doctor said retrograde amnesia. She does not remember the last 5 years at all." I felt the floor tilt under me. 5 years. That was our entire life together. The secret nights, the whispered promises, the ring I had slipped on her finger 6 months ago during a private picnic by Lake Michigan when she said yes with tears in her eyes. And we promised to find a way to tell her family when the time was right. The crash had happened on our drive back from a quiet anniversary weekend up north, rain pounding the windshield, a truck losing control, and our little sedan flipping twice. I walked away with cuts and bruises, but Tiffany took the impact on her side of the car. Tiffany frowned, rubbing her temple as if trying to grasp something just out of reach. "College, I remember college, but you look familiar, like someone from a dream, but I cannot place it," she said softly, her gaze searching my face. Mr. Hargrove stepped between us, his broad shoulders blocking the light from the window, his voice low and commanding. "See, Edith, she is confused. You should go. We will handle this as a family." He said the word family heavy, like a door slamming shut. I wanted to scream that I was not just some college acquaintance, that I was the woman who held her when her first teaching job stressed her out, the one who cooked her favorite pasta on bad days, the one she chose over every expectation her parents placed on her. But the doctor had warned me in the hallway earlier, no sudden revelations, it could cause more trauma. So I forced a nod, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Okay, I will come back tomorrow with some flowers, just as a friend," I said, the lie burning like acid. Driving back to our apartment in Lincoln Park that night, the city lights blurred through my tears. The place felt too quiet without her laugh echoing off the walls. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the nightstand drawer she kept locked, the one only we knew about. I found the tiny key taped under her jewelry box and opened it. There it was, the simple gold band with the small diamond I had saved for months to buy, nestled beside the stack of handwritten letters we exchanged when we could not risk texting anything too obvious. The ring caught the lamplight, and for a moment I could see her face, the way she had looked when I proposed, down on one knee in the sand, whispering, "Will you marry me even if the world never knows?" Tears fell onto the velvet box. Her family knew we were close. They had met me at graduation and holiday dinners, but they always framed me as the dependable platonic friend, the safe, non-threatening roommate from university days. They never suspected, or maybe they refused to see the truth because it clashed with their church values, their plans for Tiffany to marry a nice Christian man, settle down, have kids the traditional way. The prejudice had kept us hidden for years, stolen moments in my car. After work, stolen weekends, pretending to be just girls on a trip. Now the accident was erasing it all, and they were helping it happen. I closed the drawer and lay back on the pillows, breathing in the faint scent of her shampoo still on the sheets. Was I being selfish, wanting to remind her of us when her brain was healing, was fighting for our love, worth the risk of hurting her more? But the alternative, letting her family rewrite our story, letting her wake up to a life without me, felt like dying while still breathing. I made a decision right there. I would visit every day, I would be the friend they allowed, and I would wait for the right moment to show her the ring, to let the truth fight for itself. The next morning I showed up with a small bouquet of daisies, her favorite. The family had already set up shifts. Mrs. Hargrove met me in the lobby again, her smile tight. "Edith, we appreciate your concern, but Tiffany needs space to heal. The doctors say any stress could set her back. You are a good friend, but please respect our wishes as her parents," she said, the good friend hitting like a slap. I handed over the flowers anyway, and left, but not before catching a glimpse of Tiffany through the window of her room, sitting up looking toward the door with a puzzled expression that made my chest ache. Back at work, my boss pulled me aside later that afternoon, concerned about the time I was taking off. "Edith, I know this friend of yours is important, but the client deadline is tomorrow. You cannot keep disappearing like this," he said. I nodded, promising to catch up, but inside the guilt and anger swirled. My job as a graphic designer had always been flexible enough for our secret life, But now every hour away from the hospital felt like abandoning her. That evening I sat at my laptop trying to design a logo. But my mind kept drifting to the day we met at the University of Illinois freshman orientation. She had spilled coffee on my notebook and laughed, apologizing with that bright smile that made my heart flip even then. By the end of the week, the visits had become a battle. I would arrive and find Mr. Hargrove or Tiffany's sister Lauren already there, steering the conversation to safe topics, church events, old high school stories, anything but me. Tiffany was polite, asking questions about my job, my hobbies, but there was no spark, no recognition of the way I knew exactly how she liked her coffee, or the scar on her knee from a bike fall we had laughed about 100 times. One afternoon when the family stepped out for coffee, I sat by her bed and held her hand gently. "Does any of this feel familiar?" I asked softly. She squeezed back for a second, her brow furrowing. "Something does, like a warmth, but it slips away when I try to grab it," she admitted, her voice small. "I feel safe with you, Edith. But Mom says we were just roommates for a semester." I bit my lip, fighting the urge to pull out the ring right there. Instead, I told her a safe memory, the time we volunteered at the animal shelter together. How she cried over a puppy we could not adopt. She smiled faintly, and for a moment her eyes softened with something like recognition. But then Mrs. Hargrove returned and the wall went back up. "Edith, we need to limit these visits," she said quietly but firmly, leading me to the door. Driving home that night, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The price was already mounting: missed work calls from worried friends who thought I was overreacting to a college buddy's accident. But in the secret drawer the ring waited like a promise, and I knew I could not walk away. The fight had just begun and I had no idea how much it would cost us both. The days blurred into a tense rhythm after that first week. I showed up at the hospital every afternoon after rushing through my design projects at the office, my boss growing more impatient with my distracted state. Tiffany was improving physically, the bruises fading, the headaches less severe, but her memory stayed locked away behind a wall I could not breach. Each visit started the same way, her family hovering like guards, Mrs. Hargrove offering me weak coffee and polite small talk that always circled back to how wonderful it was that old friends like me cared so much. On Tuesday I managed 10 minutes alone with her when Lauren, her sister, stepped out to take a call. Tiffany looked stronger sitting up in the bed, her blonde hair brushed neatly. "Tell me more about that shelter day," she said, her voice curious. "It feels like I should remember the puppy, but it is just a feeling, not a picture." I described it in detail, how the little beagle had licked her face, and she had laughed until tears came, how we promised each other we would adopt a dog together someday when life was less complicated. Her eyes lit up for a second, and she reached out, touching my arm. "That sounds nice, Edith, really nice, like something I would do with someone special." My heart soared, but before I could say more, Lauren walked back in, her eyes narrowing. "Mom is on her way up," she announced pointedly. The next day the blocks became more obvious. Mr. Hargrove met me at the elevator with a man I did not recognize. "This is Pastor Reynolds," he said, introducing the tall gray-haired man. "He has been counseling Tiffany about her recovery, and he agrees that too many visitors could overwhelm her." The pastor smiled kindly, but his words carried weight. "Edith, God bless you for your loyalty as a friend, but sometimes the best support is giving space for the Lord to work in her heart." I left that day feeling sick to my stomach. Back in the apartment, I opened the secret drawer again, holding the ring, letting the metal warm in my palm. Was I pushing too hard? Was my love becoming a burden on her healing? The moral weight pressed down on me. If I told her everything now, would it help her remember, or shatter the fragile peace she was finding with her family? I thought about the years we spent hiding our kisses in movie theaters, our hands linked under restaurant tables, because coming out to them could mean losing her completely. Now the accident had done what fear never could. At work on Thursday, my colleague Sarah pulled me aside during lunch. "Edith, I heard about your friend from college, the car crash. You look exhausted. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle but probing. "People are talking, saying you are acting like it is more than friendship." The words stung because they were true and because the prejudice was everywhere, even among people who thought they were open-minded. I brushed it off with a laugh, but inside the isolation grew. That night I called our mutual friend Jenna, the only person who knew the full truth. She answered on the second ring, her voice tired. "Edith, I love you both, but her family called me yesterday. They want me to back off too. They said any mention of your relationship could confuse her more." The betrayal from someone I trusted cut deep, But I understood the pressure. Jenna had her own family issues. I hung up and stared at the ring, deciding I would keep it hidden a little longer. But I would not stop visiting. By the weekend, Tiffany was discharged, but not to our apartment, to her parents' house in the suburbs. I drove there uninvited on Sunday, bringing a book she used to love, a novel we read together on lazy Sundays. Mrs. Hargrove answered the door, her expression hardening. "Edith, she is resting. We will let her know you stopped by," she said, blocking the doorway. I could see Tiffany through the front window, sitting on the couch looking out with that same puzzled look. She waved faintly and my chest tightened. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Tiffany from the hospital. Thank you for the visits. It feels good to have someone who knows the old me, even if I do not." The message was innocent enough, but it gave me hope. I replied carefully, keeping it light. "Anytime, friend. Rest up." But the family must have checked her phone, because the next morning Mrs. Hargrove called me. "Edith, please do not text her. It confuses her," she said, her tone no longer polite. "We are her family. We know what is best." I hung up, shaking with anger and doubt. That afternoon I sat in my car outside their house for an hour, debating whether to knock anyway. The inner conflict tore at me. Was fighting this hard an act of love? Or was I refusing to let her go, because I could not face a life without her? The societal stares at work, the whispers, the lost opportunities, all piled on. I had turned down a big project to be available for her, and now my savings were dwindling. That night alone I wrote her a letter I would never send, pouring out the truth of our love, the way she made me feel complete, the promises we made. Then I folded it and placed it with the ring in the drawer. The decision was made. I would wait for the right moment, but I would not disappear. The cost was mounting, but so was my resolve. The pressure at work became unbearable by the following Monday. My boss called me into his office and closed the door. "Edith, the client is threatening to pull the account because the designs are late. I cannot keep covering for you," he said, his voice firm, but not unkind. "Take some time off if you need it, but decide what is more important, your career or this friend." I nodded numbly, knowing the friend was my entire world. That afternoon I drove to the Hargrove house anyway, determined to see Tiffany. Lauren answered the door, this time her eyes avoiding mine. "Mom and Dad are at church," she said, "but Tiffany is in the backyard if you want to say hi quick." It was the first crack in their wall. I found Tiffany sitting on a bench under an oak tree, a blanket over her lap. She smiled when she saw me, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Edith, I was hoping you would come," she said, patting the seat beside her. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing and everything: her therapy sessions, the headaches that still came at night, the strange dreams where she felt happy but could not remember why. I showed her my phone with old innocent photos from college, the two of us at a football game, arms around shoulders, smiling like best friends. She stared at one for a long time, her finger tracing the screen. "This feels right, like more than friends," she whispered. My heart raced, but before I could respond, Lauren appeared at the back door. "Time for your medication, Tiff," she called, her voice sharp. That evening I met Jenna at a coffee shop near my apartment. She looked guilty as she slid into the booth. "Edith, her family called me again. They offered to pay for my student loans if I stay away. They are scared you will push her into something she is not ready for," she confessed. The betrayal hit hard, but I saw the fear in her eyes too. I told her I understood, but inside the isolation closed in tighter. Back home I opened the drawer again, the ring gleaming accusingly. Was it right to keep fighting when everyone, including people who loved us, said I should let go? The next day I risked everything and drove to the house again, this time with the ring in my pocket wrapped in a tissue. Mrs. Hargrove was out running errands and Mr. Hargrove was at work. Tiffany and I sat in the living room alone for the first time since the hospital. I pulled out the ring, holding it up so the light caught the diamond. "This was yours," I said softly. "You said yes when I asked you to marry me." She stared at it, her breath catching, her hand reaching out then pulling back. "It feels familiar, the weight, the way it sparkles," she said, her voice trembling. "But Mom says we were never like that, that you are confused." The door opened and Mrs. Hargrove walked in, her face turning white when she saw the ring. "Edith, get out now," she hissed, grabbing my arm. "You are filling her head with lies." The argument exploded in the foyer, Tiffany standing between us, confused and tearful. I left the ring on the table and walked out, but not before hearing Tiffany say, "Wait, Edith, please." That night the moral storm raged inside me. Had I done the right thing showing her the proof, or had I risked her recovery for my own needs? The family called my phone repeatedly, leaving messages demanding I stay away, threatening a restraining order. Societal judgment followed me to the grocery store where an old acquaintance from church saw me and whispered to her husband about the poor Hargrove girl and her obsessed friend. I spent the night pacing the apartment, weighing the choices. The price was clear: lost professional respect, strained friendships, the very real possibility of legal trouble. But the look in Tiffany's eyes when she saw the ring told me the truth was still there, buried, but fighting to surface. I would not back down now. Tiffany was moved to a rehabilitation center on the outskirts of Chicago. The following week, her family citing better care and less stress. I found the address through a mutual contact and drove there after work, my hands shaking on the wheel. The center had strict visitor rules, but I signed in as college friend and they let me through. Tiffany looked better, her color returning, but her eyes still held that lost look. We walked the garden paths together, the spring air carrying the scent of blooming lilacs. She told me about the dreams that were coming more often, fragments of laughter, shared meals, a kiss under stars. I listened, my heart aching, wanting to fill in the blanks but holding back. When her hand brushed mine, she did not pull away. Instead, she laced our fingers for a moment before letting go. "It feels safe with you," she said quietly. The family found out by evening. Mrs. Hargrove stormed into the center, confronting the staff and me in the lobby. "You are not welcome here anymore," she said, her voice low and venomous. "We are arranging for Tiffany to meet someone appropriate, a young man from our church group, someone who can give her a normal life." The words landed like blows. That night I learned through a nurse friend that they had set up a coffee date for Tiffany with the church guy the very next day. The betrayal of her own family pushing her toward a life that denied who she was cut deeper than anything. At work the next morning, my boss gave me an ultimatum: the promotion I had been chasing or continued time off. I chose the time off, knowing it might cost me the job. I drove to the rehab center again that afternoon, sneaking in through a side entrance. Tiffany was sitting on a bench looking troubled. The coffee date was awful, she confessed. He was nice, but something felt wrong, like I was pretending to be someone else. I took a deep breath and told her more about us, the way we fell in love slowly over late-night study sessions, the fear and joy of our first kiss in my dorm room after everyone else had gone home. She listened, tears forming in her eyes. "Why would my family hide this from me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Because they think it is wrong," I said gently. "Because they love you but cannot accept this part of you." We held each other, then a careful hug full of unspoken longing. But the moment was shattered when a nurse came to fetch her for therapy and reported the visit. By evening, the family had obtained a temporary order, keeping me away from the center. I received the papers at my door, the legal language cold and final. The inner conflict reached its peak that night. Was I harming her by refusing to disappear? Was my love selfish in the face of her family's protection? I sacrificed the promotion the next day, calling my boss to resign, knowing the financial hit would be brutal. Friends stopped calling, some openly telling me to move on, that I was destroying myself over a straight woman who did not remember me. But in the quiet of the apartment, the ring still waited. And I knew the pull between us was real. Tiffany texted me secretly from a borrowed phone that night. "I remember the lake, the proposal, please do not give up on me." The message gave me strength amid the gathering storm. The choices were tearing us both apart, but I would pay the price to bring her back to us. The family gathering happened 2 weeks later at the Hargrove house, a Sunday dinner meant to welcome Tiffany back into normal life, with the church guy invited as the guest of honor. I found out through a desperate call from Tiffany using the same borrowed phone. "Please come," she whispered, "they are pushing so hard, and I keep having flashes of us." I drove their, heart racing, parking down the street and slipping into the backyard through the side gate we had used for secret escapes years ago. The voices carried from the dining room, laughter and prayers. And then Tiffany's raised voice. "Stop it, all of you. I remember her now. I remember Edith." Chaos erupted. I stepped through the back door, and the room fell silent. Mrs. Hargrove pointed at me, her face red. "You are not welcome here. Get out before we call the police." But Tiffany stood up, her hands trembling, but her eyes clear for the first time. "No, Mom, I remember the proposal, the ring, the way she makes me feel whole. You lied to me." The confrontation exploded. Accusations flew, Mr. Hargrove shouting about sin and confusion, Lauren crying that I had manipulated her sister, the church guy looking uncomfortable and backing toward the door. I pulled the ring from my pocket, placing it on the table. "This is yours, Tiffany," I said, my voice steady despite the shaking inside. You chose me once and I am here if you choose me again. Tiffany picked it up, sliding it onto her finger. The fit perfect. The room erupted again, but this time Tiffany turned to her family, her voice strong. I love her, and if you cannot accept that, then I have to choose. The psychological toll was visible in everyone's faces. Tiffany's headaches returning from the stress, my own exhaustion from weeks of fighting. Revelations poured out, the family admitting they had known about us all along, but hoped the accident would give them a second chance to steer her right. The betrayal was complete, and it broke something in Tiffany. I made the decision then to leave, giving her space to process, but she grabbed my hand. Do not go, she said. We faced this together. We left together that night, driving back to our apartment, the silence heavy with the weight of what had just happened. The family followed with calls and threats, but we ignored them, locking the door and holding each other as the tears finally came. The price had been paid: careers damaged, relationships shattered, public rumors spreading through their church circles. But in that moment the truth had won. The weeks that followed were a slow rebuilding. Tiffany moved back into the apartment, her memory returning in waves, triggered by familiar places and my gentle stories. We faced the fallout together, the family cutting contact completely, Mrs. Hargrove sending one final letter, calling me a destroyer of their family. My job was gone, but I found freelance work that allowed me to be home more. Tiffany returned to teaching part-time, her colleagues supportive once the truth came out. We walked through the city hand in hand, no longer hiding the small acts of courage that cost us everything but gave us back each other. There were still nights when Tiffany woke crying from the gaps in her memory, the guilt over hurting her family weighing on her. I held her through them, reminding her that love was never the sin, the hiding was. One evening by the lake where I had proposed, we sat on the same bench, the ring back on her finger where it belonged. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I lost so much, but I found you again, she said softly. The sacrifices had been real. My career trajectory stalled, her family ties severed, the societal whispers still following us in certain circles. But the awakening was worth every tear, every fight, every doubt. We had chosen truth over comfort, and in doing so found a stronger version of ourselves. As the sun set over the water, I looked at the woman I had fought the world for and knew the battle had changed us both for the better. When tragedy erases the love you built and family demands you vanish from her life, is it right to fight with every ounce of your being? Or is the kindest thing to let her forget and find peace without the complications of our forbidden past?